Well, welcome back to Men's Couch, Alex. It was a blast to have you on I think it was 2 weeks ago? The 2 weeks? Okay. I'm still editing our video, but I'm sending out like little videos from the podcast, which is getting a lot of feedback, which I'm glad and happy about. So it's getting a lot of like
Awesome.
feedback and then just like, wow, this is really good. But I'm excited to talk about myths in regards to friendship and developing friendship. I feel like there's a whole lot of myths that go into it and just how we maintain friendship and just how we go about it. I feel like there's just so many things that people can get wrong in how they approach it, that they feel that they're not doing it right. They feel that I'm not doing, because the way that I do friendship is different, then that means I'm doing it wrong. So I feel like a lot of people feel very insecure about their friendship.
For sure. I mean, you've hit on so many things already. The number one thing I would say to people, just like if you're starting to listen to this episode, I personally don't think that there is any right or wrong way to do friendship.
Hmm.
Whatever works for somebody and like for their relationships is great. Like, I'm not here to
Yeah.
tell someone how to do it. The way I do friendship may be completely wrong for someone else. And I think that's like the starting point is so many people think, like you were saying, there's like one right way and they can't figure out what that way is, or they've tried all the ways and they haven't found the one. There is no right way. It's just what works for you. And you may be trying all these things that everyone says work, and maybe you need to go like outside the box.
Yeah, I feel like for me, like definitely kind of the way that I do approach friendship, especially male friendship, is definitely kind of against the norm in a way. Are you able to see me at this? The light's just so weird.
The light is pretty
The
rough for
light's
you. The right
the light is
it's bad.
Let me try to
Yeah, I get it. We
if
want we
I
want
like
good video. So
wait, I think it's just okay. I don't know
do
if
you have like
that
a big piece of cardboard or something you could put over that window? That would
I
probably help.
could actually no I'll do so it doesn't you'll
Yeah, that's gonna be better for you.
'cause now it's like triggering my transition lens.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
that's gonna be better for
That's
you, I
better.
think.
That's
Yeah.
better. Yeah, the way that I like approach friendship is kind of I feel like it's different from the norm because number one, like I feel like we're kind of a little similar because I have a lot of friends but also I have a lot of deep friendships. And I feel that for me, sometimes like I compare myself to like other people that, only have like a small community or just like only have one best friend or just I feel like I'm doing it wrong. Like I'm doing it too much when really it's what works for me. It's something that like I value like diversity and I value um just getting to know different people. So I feel like that can be I've always felt that that was like too much, but it just I don't know. I think that maybe that's just another myth I've been carrying all along.
Yeah, I mean, so what I would say to start off about myths is that when you start listening for them, they are everywhere, right? It's
Yeah.
it's literally in the way that we talk about friendship in just like casual phrases people throw out. So an example would be, like keep your circle tight.
Yeah.
And that probably has you sitting over here being like, "Wait, I like this broader community.
Hmm.
Am I doing it wrong? Right? Should I just
Yeah.
have one best
Yeah.
friend or this little trio of people?" And I do find that there are some people who like, I wouldn't even say less friends per se. There are some people who don't want to maintain a bunch of deep connections.
Yeah.
But a good number of those people, if you really start digging, they also are probably really involved in, I don't know, a community, that whether it's like their local neighborhood or a religious community or a
Hmm.
club or a service organization. So in their mind, like they have this tight little immediate circle, but there's probably for a good number of people that I talk to, if I start digging, like I find there is more to it than that. But that's just like one example of a myth that we hear. Another one is, find your best friend and hold on to them tight. They're like a four-leaf
Yeah.
clover. They're rare, right?
Yeah, I think that could be very damaging to a lot of friendships that we do have, where we feel like we need to have a best friend or we need to have like we expect this one person to be our best friend. That's a lot of pressure for someone, and that's a lot of pressure for ourselves to be that for someone. I think that's just that can be too much, and also that can take away the value of like other friendships where if you're comparing one friendship to another, you might compare it to a degree of I'm closer with this person is my best friend. But then what about like your other friendships? They might not be as close, but they do like offer something. And I feel like when we put pressure on ourselves to find like a best friend, like as adults, we might we might be making ourselves to feel lonelier than what we actually are if we have like because our social circle doesn't look like the our ideal um is not looking like our ideal standard of a best friend.
Yeah, my I don't like the term best friend. I really try not to
I
use it.
I don't either.
My question to somebody is always like, best friend for what?
Yeah.
Best friend for what? Because then you can start thinking like, oh, they're the person I always feel like I can call in an emergency or the middle of the night. They are the person I always go to when I'm really struggling with like a certain area of your life that you feel like has always been your biggest problem. They
Mhm.
are my best friend for doing spontaneous fun things.
Yeah.
Really, I think if we dig deeper, your best friend probably does not fulfill every bucket of your life in every
They
area
can't.
to the max. They can't. And that's like not a fair thing to ask. If I turn that around, I would feel so overwhelmed if I felt like I was supposed to be all the things to this friend. I mean, I don't even feel that way about my partner. Like I've been
Yeah.
married. I've been with
Yeah.
my now husband for gosh, 16 years. We met when we
Mhm.
were really young. I don't even think I can be his everything. So why would
Yeah.
I think I can be that for a friend?
Yeah, and I think, like, when we might, like, become dissatisfied when someone isn't meeting our, like, version of what a best friendship should look like, and I think that could actually cause, like, some, friendship conflict. It could cause some rupture if we are if we're projecting our idea of what a best friendship should look like to someone else, they could feel like they don't live up to that. And that's going to kind of make them like feel not appreciated for who they are. And then if we're on the other hand, we're like, well, why aren't you meeting all these needs? And it's like, they you just can't. It's just not, they're not. That's why I think it's important to not have a best friend or to not well, my personal belief is to not, because I don't like the word. It always felt weird to me. I never really understood it, but I feel like it's important to, have a more wider scope of community. So you have like we talked about like the last episode. I have an older neighbor, Miss Susie, and I also have like she is able to provide something that people on campus can't provide. And I think that's okay. And I think that's having it more diverse is not like putting like pressure on people that are in our lives.
That's not to say for anybody who's listening that you can't have maybe a friend that you feel closer to, or you can't want to be closer to a particular friend, or you can't have somebody who fills a lot of buckets of your life.
Mhm.
But I just think this all consuming kind of all or nothing best friends label, I get why it came to be, right? When we are kids, our lives are pretty simple. We don't
Mhm.
have a lot of options. We go to the same places. A lot of things are chosen for us. Our life overlaps with, like, if you have a childhood best friend, they probably live in your community, right? They probably go to your same school or play in the same sports, or like you
Mhm.
have a lot of overlap in your life because your life also is not that complex. So I
Yeah.
get where this idea of like your childhood best friend comes from because it kind of can be all consuming.
Yeah.
But your world's not that big. Then we become adults who are being pulled in all these different directions, who have different responsibilities, who, like,
Wear different
let's
hats.
wear different hats. I mean, even my job is so different than my partners and my friends. Most of them work in corporate America. They don't understand what I do. So to
Yeah.
think that they could show up perfectly for me and support me in all my ventures here, they're like, "Sorry, why do you have a podcast? Like, what does that do for you? What does that workday look like?" Right? They don't know. So I have other people in my life who are kind of like my closest work friends who when I tell them about how I'm, I don't know, pitching to be on some big podcast, they understand that that's a big deal and what that process looks like and the likelihood that I'll get it or that I won't because they understand that hat that I wear.
Yeah,
For
and you're
anybody
like
who is really struggling with this idea that whoever they're closest to, you might be like, "Why don't they get all the parts of me?" It's like, is that a realistic
yeah.
expectation?
Yeah, I think going off that, we can have like expectations for our friend to or our quote unquote best friends to be always in contact with us or always, which is another myth. I feel like I kind of confronted is the like frequency of contact means that we have a good connection.
Mm.
And I think it can be true, but also it's not like an indicator. Like if you're in frequent contact with someone, like I think it's a good thing. I think it's okay to with some people you might call like every week or call or net with now it's just texting. So I think it's okay for that. But to not base your friendship off of that because that's I think in our modern day, it's hard to kind of to see that our friendship isn't limited to the frequency of
So I have this analogy that I use all the time. If you imagine that, right, I don't know, you're going on some sort of adventure, and behind you, you left this trail of breadcrumbs, and every breadcrumb is like a time that you were in contact with your friend. Whether that is sending them a meme, having a really deep conversation, right? Like a deep conversation might be a whole baguette, and a meme might just be a breadcrumb. Okay. And what you want is you're looking back to like get back to your friend, right? To find your way back home. And what you want is this belief, basically. Like you want security that they are my friend. They will answer my phone call. They will show up for me. And the further and
Yeah,
further and
that's
further you get away from them, hopefully you've dropped all these little breadcrumbs. But if there's like this huge distance between your breadcrumbs, you kind of get lost. And I think your brain goes a little crazy in there and it does what it does and it makes up stories and it starts to tell you,
yeah.
like, well, they don't care about me. They won't answer if I call. They wouldn't show up for me. They don't care about what matters to me, right? All these beliefs start to go from feeling really secure to suddenly being really big question marks. Like,
Yeah.
are they my friend? Eventually, that is the question mark. You go from they are my friend because you have all this evidence that leads you back to them to suddenly being like, are they my friend? And so
Yeah.
the whole point of this is that I think we are all dropping all sorts of evidence all the time.
Mhm.
One, does somebody see it? Does somebody like recognize that, like, hey, I was trying
Yeah.
to drop a loaf of bread there to check in on you, and you just kind of say like, "Oh, I'm busy." So you may not even notice. And two, some things I might think are a loaf of bread, you might think they're a breadcrumb,
Yeah, and
and we never know.
yeah.
And so all this is to say, if I look back, I might see a bunch of loaves of bread and we might be really far apart and it might be really infrequent, but I just have this like trust that we are friends and it's okay.
Mhm.
But on the flip side, you might have seen all those loaves of bread as breadcrumbs, and you might be
You
sitting there being like, I don't really know if we're friends anymore. It's kind of a big
yeah.
analogy, but
Yeah,
it's going to be different for everybody.
it's all about like the interpretation of things and what people like people can value the same thing, but how they can value like okay, like connection and open communication or frequent communication, but how they go about it's going to be different. You know, frequency might look like I will text you like once a week. Some people it's like every day, and that can get overwhelming. I think Gen Z, my generation, struggles with even to like the simplest thing of why'd you leave me undelivered? Like that's
Mhm.
always I hear that like very frequently. I hear that a lot of why did you leave me undelivered? And I think we're basing our security of our friendships and connections on like something like as simple as that, where we're kind of losing trust and we're losing meaning of our connections.
So if we take that a step further, though, I would say that most people, not everyone, most people haven't considered like personally what matters to them and what doesn't. What is their loaf of
Yeah.
bread and what is their breadcrumb? So then we hear things like, oh, if our friend leaves us on red, they don't care about me. But in
Yeah.
reality, if you really sit with it, do you care about that? And like maybe you care a little bit, but in reality, like what is your loaf of bread, right? Is it more that, like, here's an example. Maybe it's really meaningful to you. I'm just making this up. If I text you and I'm like, hey, I know that you're having a really bad week. I am really overloaded with, I don't know, tests this week, but could we just get together and like sit down for 15 minutes and I want you to tell me about your week?
Yeah.
That to you might be like a loaf of bread and you may not care at all that I've left you on red because I have a bunch of texts. But we don't
Yeah.
know that and we just make assumptions. So, like asking your friends what really matters to you, and then flip side, spending time with yourself to determine like what matters to you. Is it being left on red? Do you need those consistent things? Or maybe
Mhm.
15 minutes of someone acknowledging you've had a rough week and listening to you. Like, what matters to you? Stop just
Yeah. Yeah.
making these blanket statements or believing you have to care about what everyone else cares about. Like, what do you care about?
Yeah, and I think like we might adopt certain things, certain rules of how we go about friendship based on like who's around us. I think like especially with, like this is me generalizing, but with like Gen Z and the whole like you didn't read you left me on red or you left me undelivered. I feel like a lot of people actually don't actually care, but they think that they should care about that because that
Mhm.
like them caring about that is a signal of the like importance of the friendship. And when we get into that, we this it can go like it can create like unnecessary rupture. And I think we need to take a step back, like you said, ask ourselves, well, what is actually like important to me? Do I really need frequent text messages or do I need I've recently I started FaceTiming my friend. He has gosh, my mind I'm drawing a blank. He has epilepsy. So what's because I'm not like always able to see him like in person, I FaceTime him a lot more now that because he had an episode recently. So I FaceTime him more. That works for our friendship and he's okay with that. But at the same time, that's like our friendship isn't dependent on that. And I realized that through that, I value FaceTime more than that like messaging because for me, I can't like really see your face. I can't really see, what's going on. So I think we definitely need to like reevaluate like, maybe I actually don't want this. Maybe
Mhm.
I don't want you calling me like every week. Maybe it was once a month hangouts. It's like, I think that's a huge myth of like frequency, I think it's all about like people think about how things should look isn't actually how things are because we're all human. We're all like complex and how we each want our connections.
Yeah. I say this all the time, like stop comparing your friendships to other friendships because the only people who know what's actually happening behind the scenes are the people in the friendship. Even if you watch them on social media, you aren't going to know.
Yeah.
So, an example of this is I have an acquaintance of mine, and I definitely have seen on social media that she has this kind of like friendship trio. And I
Hmm.
assumed they were all like really, really close friends, right? We were at a networking event, and as people do sometimes, they share things with me that maybe they wouldn't share otherwise. And this person was like, yeah, so I've been listening to some of your podcast episodes, and I realized that in this friendship trio, I am close to friend B,
Hmm.
but I'm really not close to friend C. They're really close. So basically, like two sides of this triangle are close, but between friend A and friend C, she was like,
You're not.
we don't talk unless it's in a group
Yeah.
message. We don't hang out. We don't, like, I would feel awkward asking what she wants to do.
Hmm.
And I was just like, wait, what? What? Because
Hmm.
the way they portray themselves is that they are just this
Is
like tight trio. You don't
yeah.
know.
I
You don't know.
I tend to do that, like, a lot. Like, if I see, other people, like, in a group or group setting, I tend to, like, associate that with, like, closeness or, these people, like, must be, like, very close. They must have, like, a really good good, great connections. And while that can be true and that also can't be true, I think at the same time, that's that's what works for those people, but it doesn't work for me. Like, I shouldn't uh, and I feel like that's can sometimes come up with like jealousy. You might feel jealous because of something that we think we should have, but in the end, it actually doesn't work for us. No, I like last episode we talked about like how I just have people over and I have like a whole get together and we study together, but that doesn't I shouldn't expect that to work for other like someone else. It just works for me. And I think that we need to invite more variability in how we go about friendships instead of it being like so one way. And I feel like I have a lot to say about that because I feel like we even like might feel someone is like a toxic friend if
Oh,
we if we like, oh, they're not talking to me or texting me as much. They're very like we throw that word around so much.
I also despise calling anybody a toxic friend because it's like you're giving them a label. Like they can never get away from that. Maybe your
Yeah.
friendship styles don't align. Maybe they're just really not doing well in this friendship and they need to go somewhere else. But like calling them a
Hmm.
toxic friend makes it sound like they're never going to find someone. And like it just might not be you. It just might not be right now. It just like that's fine. Let it go. But I don't think we need to give people that label. That's my take.
Yeah, that's just very it's just very like harsh to do that to someone because I think and I that can be another myth like just because like we put labels on people, putting labels on people because they don't fit our definition of friendship or our what we deem is okay. And I think we need to allow more ambiguity and more like variability so that we're not like throwing labels on people like this person is this. There's like this it doesn't do you any good to do that because it's because again as humans we're complex and we have like different varying needs. So it does like a disservice like in the end.
I agree with that. I think connected to like the past couple things that we've mentioned is a big myth, which is kind of this myth that friendship should be effortless, right?
Yes.
Friendship should
Yes.
be
Yeah.
easy, that we should just click with people and those are our real friends, true friends, whatever. Like, that a good friendship just maintains itself. And I mean, there's also this idea, right? You shouldn't have to ask for what you need. A real friend should just know.
Yeah, there's also like and I feel like we don't put intentionality and communication when we're like, "Oh, they should just know how I feel. They should know that this offends me."
Or that
But
it matters to me.
that's not like, no one can just know, you have to tell them, and I think people are afraid of, like, telling or they're afraid of, like, communicating or afraid of because it does take vulnerability to, like, say, like, "Hey, this is, like I don't like this," or "This is hurtful," but I think, yeah, there's a lot of, like there's a myth of, like, just guessing, like, you can't
And if you guess wrong, you're not a real friend, right?
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's wild because I came out to do this work and talk about friendship and community and connection, and I spend so much freaking time talking about romantic relationships and
Mhm.
familial relationships because the way that we treat them compared to our friendships is wild if you think about it, right? It is
Yeah.
so normal for somebody to say, like, hey, me and my romantic partner are going to therapy. We have work to do. It is like celebrated to do
Yeah.
work in that relationship. Same with a family relationship, right? That is shifting. I think we're kind of like watching it shift, but it is more and more
And then
normal.
literally, it's like marriage and family therapy, like,
Yeah.
that's how it's branded.
Yeah, it's more and more normal to say you're going to therapy with somebody in your family or that you're working on that relationship. But yet, friendship, which I think because it's just so devalued,
Yeah.
it's like if it
Yeah.
is work at all, they are toxic. It's not worth it. We didn't click. They're not my real
Yeah.
friend. Cut it out. And I'm
We
over
do
here
a lot
like,
of
that's
we do a l
crazy.
we do a lot of cutting people off.
Yeah.
My experience of what I've experienced, we do a lot of, like, blocking, cutting off, like, this person we do a lot of that, and I think it's because we don't have, like, the language or the skills to work on our friendships, our current friendships. So we do a lot of that because we feel like it's easier. And we also like it's also not like you said, it's not normal to work on a friendship. You're like, what do you mean if we're gonna work on a friendship? I mean, realistically, it's these are people that you value, these are people that you respect, so why not? Why not try to work on this?
Well, and to take that a step further, right? Everybody out here saying making friends is so hard. It's so hard to make friends. So I'm like, okay, so your options are block everyone, cut everyone off,
Yeah,
right? Kick them out. Now you have no one, but it's
yeah,
so hard to make new friends. Or take some of the existing relationships you have and put a little effort and energy into figuring out how to navigate doing the work, right? Changing those friendships. And
mhm.
you were saying, like, we don't know how to do the work. Yeah, yes and no. Like, is it really that different from the work we're doing in
In our
family
romantic and yeah,
relationships and
yeah,
romantic relationships? It's all very similar.
yeah, we just
So,
I feel like we sorry, I don't wanna cut you off. I just feel like we don't wanna apply the language
yeah,
that yeah, we don't
yeah.
want to.
Yeah, and I do think there's some, I do think we are lacking some language in friendship. Friendship is so
Mhm,
open-ended and out there and like what is the goal of this friendship? Like if you think about, right, if somebody gets married, you have a pretty strong sense of like what their goals are and people might have
mhm,
conversations that, right, like they might have an open marriage or their goal may not be to have a family or they may never combine finances. Like people have these conversations, but there's like some like we're going to spend our life together. We're going to work to build this shared vision we have. What is the goal of friendship? So I get why people struggle cuz like what are we even working towards?
mhm,
And like I will say that was something I really struggled with, which is why I worked really hard to develop a bunch of language in my book to help people
yeah.
because it'll give you some idea of like where to put your energy to work on things.
Yeah, I think we were afraid because it's like, well, other relationships have more clear parameters and friendship is kind of just a lot more ambiguous. And I would say, yeah, like it can be, but also like, I mean, at least for me, like, it's not like for me when it comes to like goals and friendships, like it might not be like necessarily a clear goal, but it might be more of seeing where the friendship goes, kind of feeling out like who this person is, but also feeling out what how this friendship kind of adds to my life. Maybe this friend helps, I don't know, helps me garden. Maybe this other friend kind of I'm trying to make something up. They like help with assignments or help me in like in work or a work aspect. So I feel like with that, that's when we can kind of come along with like expectations of, what's okay. I think you're right. I think people they don't like apply language to their friendships in a way that can sometimes it can be needed sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, it is hard, right? There's not much language out there. We have like an acquaintance, a friend, a best friend, not my friend.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
don't really think that covers the spectrum of friendship. So, like, I literally developed a framework with multiple types of friends and community and acquaintances and family and like all this stuff in there. I hope that it blows up. I hope that this language becomes
Mhm.
more common, not even for selfish goals, right? But mainly because I do think that people just struggle to have a conversation or to analyze their friendship
Yeah.
under with the language we currently have. So I
Yeah,
do think
because
that would
it
help a lot of people.
and then it gets more, like, black and white. Like, it's either like, "Okay, you either are my friend because of this or you're not."
Mhm.
There are cases where that can be true, like, maybe, like, it's not, like, a healthy friendship, but also there's a lot of cases that are more it's more nuanced, and this one maybe our definition of closeness is hanging out, like, once every few months, or our definition of closeness is hanging out, like, once a week. So I think having different kind of categories of friends, it can be helpful.
I agree with you. I talk about
I
that
don't
all
know
the
if that
time.
like
Yeah.
yeah, I was like I think it can be helpful. Also, another thing that I'm like heavily interested in is attachment theory, and I feel like that is talked a lot about in romantic really or dating relationships, but not so much friendship. So I think that's another thing of like talking about language, how we can apply that to friendship. I think it can be very, very, very useful.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And, I think all of this relates to another myth, which is this idea that, the better friends, your closest friends, your best friends, your real friends, like they're the ones who have been there through it all. They're the ones who last a really long time. Kind of this myth of longevity
Yeah.
that there's, if a friendship fails, if it ends, then it's a failure. And in
Yeah.
reality, it's like maybe that friendship just ran its course. Maybe it served its purpose, right? When you start looking at your friendships as kind of filling a certain area of your life, maybe you graduated from college and that friendship was really about, both graduating with honors or something or getting a job and you both got a job. And you might stay in touch here or there, but it just doesn't feel the same way. And so you feel like it's failed because it hasn't
Yeah.
continued in its the same form. And I think that's a little wild because you think
Yeah.
about it, like there's not much in life that we expect to stay at its peak forever. Like if somebody is an elite
Yeah.
athlete, they train and train and train. The Winter Olympics are happening right now. They train to win gold and to hit their peak at that exact moment. Nobody
Mhm.
expects them 6 months from now to be in the exact same physical shape that they are, that they could win gold
Or like
right
or
now.
even like musical air like if we have like artists,
Mhm.
you know, they might be have their prime, like, the Beatles had their prime in like the 1960s. They had their era, and I think that, yeah, like you said, they had their time, but things shifted and different needs. We have different varying needs depending on where we are in our lives. I might like need a friend like with college right now. I might need someone that confident right now, but that's going to change in the next few years. So I think where we're in those transition seasons or when we're making or if we're moving, we might go, or if someone else is moving, we might feel like, okay, they're rejecting me or I'm rejecting them if the friendship isn't as close as it once was. There's a lot of like I feel like there's a lot of like language with like even like rejection, like this person, like we can feel that they don't care or develop that narrative, that story. Like they don't care because they are in a different like life stage or they moved to a different city. So we can even like have those myths of that.
Yeah. In my wheel of connection, I have something called a historic friend. It's one of my types of friendship.
I think I listened to like an episode of that. I think I found that very interesting.
So basically, the idea is some friendships, right? Like if we take one of my college roommates, I freaking love C. We're going to call her C. I love her and I still see her, but she lives in California now. I live in Seattle. We're not together all the time. We aren't like living life together.
Mhm.
When a few years ago I had a cancer scare, I'm fine, but I had to go like get all the testing, right? I
Yeah.
called her like crying after I left the appointment. And she's still one of those people that I really go to, but a lot of our friendship really survives on kind of this mutual trust, getting to see each other every once in a while, and our past. And that's okay. But it is a very, very different form than our friendship was even 5 years ago when she still lived in the same city.
Yeah.
We're not living life day to day anymore. When I created Historic Friends in my framework, like when I thought of this concept, it's like for all these people out there who are like, but they're my best friend, but they don't.
Like they have to be like we have to be like as close. We have to do all these things. I feel like that there's like the
Yeah, but
even the language of
there's all this pressure, but they also
pressure.
know
Yeah.
that like it's not the same as it once was and they feel like it's a
Yeah.
failure. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, 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 no. I just call that a historic friendship and you can really celebrate how beautiful that friendship is, but your expectations of it are also different because you aren't living life day to day, but they know so much about you and they would probably show up for
Mhm.
you and you love the time that you do get to spend together. It's just not the same as it once was,
Yeah.
and
And
that's okay.
I feel like because we can compare the present with the past, and we can't like honor. We don't can't honor what the connection looks like now. But this is especially difficult when it comes to childhood friends.
Yeah.
We can't like see it for what it is now. But we kind of we kind of we're not able to value it, and we won't even like try. Well, they're in a different city, so oh, well, just let it go. But, like, no, like, there's a way that you could accept the new form and it still be valuable and it still add something to your life. Just because it's not you guys aren't on the same street or, it's things are different, but different isn't I feel like we're also afraid of change as well. We're afraid
Mhm.
of things
Mhm.
changing, but that then we have to change our definition of security being things always the same. Security, how about we trust the security of the connection despite the form.
Well, I also think that a lot of security comes from just spending a little time reflecting on what is actually happening. So
Yeah.
many people get so panicked that it's different and they don't really spend much time thinking about like what is different? Why is it different? Was that
Mhm.
my fault? Was that anybody's fault? It's just life circumstances. Okay, how can we work with this? And it's going to feel
Yeah.
different. Like that's okay. Let's find a new peak in this new form.
Yeah.
The
Even, like,
other no, go ahead.
sorry. Okay, I'll go. So even with, like, family, that changes as well.
Yeah.
Whether you're, moving away from your family or you're getting married or getting a new job, like, you can't expect the same form of the relationship from when you were a kid to, like,
Mhm.
being an older adult. So I think that's even that, but that's a lot more normalized.
Mhm. Yeah. So, I was gonna say another myth is kind of this idea that at a certain point we're done making friends.
Yeah.
Like that,
We just
I get people all the time who are like, I missed the boat. I didn't make friends when I was younger and in college, and now I'm an adult with no friends. Or I think that's the other scary thing is if you believe that we're done making friends at a certain point and then your closest friend moves across the country and your friendship feels different, you're like, "Oh, well, I will never have that friend who just like pops by my house." It's like that's not true. It's not true. We are done making friends when we are in the grave, and even
yeah.
then, I'm like, I don't know, somebody might talk about you and, like, be connected, so I don't even know if that's true, but we're gonna go with that slogan of, like, you're only done making friends when you're in the grave. So,
Yeah.
if you're really, really good friend, like me, to the other part of the country, and something you miss is that they were just, like, popping by your house all the time, or you were doing things on the weekends together or running errands,
Mhm.
it's okay to both love and appreciate that historic friendship that you now have with that friend that lives in California and look to make a new friend that can just casually stop by your house or run errands or
Yeah.
wants to go do like you're never done. You didn't miss the boat. It is
Yeah.
okay to keep adding to your life people that fill whatever your need is that you miss in this current season of life.
Yeah, and I think, like, that's when, like, for me, my, like, definition of friendship tends to be a lot more, like, expansive and more open than more closed. It wasn't always like that, but, like, just over time, meeting different people kind of broadened my horizons to understand that people can fill different needs at different times, and you're not replacing someone. You shouldn't feel like you're replacing someone if you meet someone new that's just as awesome, but it's just when you are a lot more closed off to new opportunities for friendship and connection, I feel like we can get a lot more, in a rut of we feel, like, a lot more lonely when we're not putting ourselves out there and meeting new people, so
Yeah, I kind of think of it like a funnel, like a sales funnel, as silly as that sounds. One of the reasons I ended up writing my book, like one of the catalysts for it, was that I had this bigger friend group that I was really close with. We did a lot of trips together, Sunday brunches, random things. And when you added in significant others, like at the time, I want to say it was 20 something people,
Mhm.
10 friends, so 5 couples, moved out of state in a 6-month period.
Oh,
And I panicked. I, like,
yeah.
absolutely panicked,
That's when the anxiousness comes.
what led me down this road of trying to understand what was holding my friendships together. That's where my whole book started. And, like, it's not so much about having a bunch of friends, like you were saying in the beginning. Like, I like to have a variety of people in my life. I enjoy that. If you enjoy a smaller circle, that's fine by you, right? It's whatever anybody wants. But I like kind of having this variety in my life. And so what I realized is that I had not been investing much time and energy into some of my simpler friendships. So that was part of my
Mm,
panic was
okay.
like, okay, well, where am
Yeah,
I going to get some of this social interaction now that
yeah.
people are leaving? So now I am really mindful of making sure that I have some people kind of in the wings, and people are gonna hate that, but here's the deal is
'Cause it sounds to people like to I don't know, like, to some people, it sounds like, "Well, are you're just keeping everyone in like, having someone in your pocket?" Like, that's not what it is.
that's not what it is. What it is, like, I have some friends where we have maybe some like very specific ways we hang out or specific interests we share. And our friendship really centers around kind of this one thing. And when that happens, I have a better awareness of like the ways to show up for them because I know how our friendship centers. So, for example, I have a person I have known for, gosh, like 14 years now. In the past 3 or 4 years, we've gotten closer. I would consider her like my work wife at this point, but a lot of our friendship centers around work.
Mhm.
It's not like I feel like I have to invite her and her family to like every single social thing I do. I don't have to plan all my trips with them. But as long as I really, really show up for her in a work capacity, I know I'm supporting that friendship and vice versa. Like my expectations of her are mainly in the work sense. Now, that's not to say that our friendship won't ever deepen or we won't add new ways that we're connected. Like jokingly, she's been looking to move actually closer to me, right? And that would
Mhm.
probably completely shift our friendship because if she lives within a few blocks, like I'm probably popping over all the time. Things are probably going to change. But right now, we are very okay with the way our friendship exists. That's what I
Yeah.
mean by that. And like we know how we expect the other person to show up. If I didn't show up for her, maybe in a work capacity, like for example, she's presenting at some big thing and I didn't message her or I didn't go and attend and cheer her on or I didn't whatever. Like after a certain point, she might be like, because that's kind
Like,
of where
what's
our
going
expectation
on?
lives, is that we
Yeah.
really are each other's, like, biggest work cheerleaders,
Mhm.
and that's okay for right now. It doesn't need to be all-consuming.
Yeah, like, you shouldn't have that person be, like, expecting her to show up, like, at your like, when you're struggling or like, to be available all the time.
Yeah,
That's
or to, like, invite her to every party or every trip or, I don't have kids, but she has kids, to think that I would always drop everything to, like, pick her kids up from school or something. That's just those aren't really parts of our friendship. Now, that's not to say we'll never ask each other those things. Maybe someday we will, and maybe our friendships will expand in those ways. But
mhm.
right now, it's, like, really okay with both of us that it lives in this form.
Yeah, and I have people, like, in my life, I have people that I go hiking with.
Mhm.
I wouldn't expect them to just show up at my doorstep if I'm, like, having a rough day. That's not 'cause it exists in that context, like, for a specific reason, for that purpose. And I think if we allow that, then we can be more satisfied with the friendships that we have, and I feel like we're there's another, like, myth of, like, scarcity, of I don't have enough
Yeah.
of this, and we're looking for that, and we're finding it when it's not there. The scarcity isn't there. It's just we're expecting something. We're expecting people to be something, and that's not what the friendship
Well,
provides.
I think a huge piece of it is where somebody puts their attention, right? If you are
Mhm,
so focused on what is not there, you're
mhm,
likely missing what is there. And the other thing is what I find really interesting is when I talk to people, it's like, okay, this person is pretty much always down to go on a hike with you, right? It's a pretty simple
mhm.
friendship. You have a fun time when you are hiking. This is something you really want to get out and do. You love that this person goes with you. You can appreciate that. But if you spent all your time ignoring that and so focused on the fact that this person is not answering your phone calls in the middle of the night and showing up
Yeah,
for you in all the ways to help you get to graduation and helping you find a job and this and that and the other thing, that of course is going to feel like scarcity and feel overwhelming. The other thing is that a lot of people are like, oh, well, they're not a real friend. So then
ugh,
when I ask someone, like, okay, well, what makes someone a real friend? They
And they
don't
don't
know.
have they
They
don't
don't know. They
know
don't have an answer. So, what you're telling me is you're so focused on how they're not a real friend, but you can't tell me what
what a
would get them
real
there. And so, because you're so focused on all of that, you are missing the small way that this person is actually a really enjoyable person in your life.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And I think when we watch shows like Friends, I love watching Friends like the sitcom. When we watch shows like Friends, then we can feel that our connections like have are scarce or like we have like the scarcity mindset. When really like even if the sitcom Friends happen in real life, that works for them in that context. Ross or whomever, Joey might not have a hiking friend, but he has people that live with him. Just because like that it doesn't look like that in your life. You have someone that like you might hang out with every now and then. You might have the hiking person, you might have someone that like at work. They can't all be together on one couch, but that doesn't mean that your community isn't.
Also, again, you do not know what is happening in that group of people. They could have a roommate and they could all get together, right? But those roommates could be fighting, and the people who are getting together could have some big disagreement and they don't want to do something together and it's causing a lot of tension. You don't you don't know. You don't know. Also, there
Yeah.
could be somebody that was like part of that friend group who actually really doesn't enjoy that friend group and they've just never said anything. You don't know. So, like, instead of being so focused on how it doesn't look like it quote unquote should, like, what do you even want? What do you want?
Yeah, I think that's a good question for people to ask. Like, what do I want in my friendships? And also, how can I appreciate fully what people are providing me?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so I have this bigger friend group that I find really fascinating and I talk about them a decent amount. At this point, it's like 30 plus people when you include significant others. And
Yeah.
I think of it more like a community in the sense of a lot of people assume that everybody is equally close with each other. That's
Hmm.
not it at all. Some people are more acquaintances. Some people are really close friends. There's like multiple groups within the group.
Yeah, that's how it is with mine.
Yeah. Yeah. And everybody has varying levels of closeness. And there's one person in the group I can think of, for example, like I love the big group functions.
Hmm.
I love those. They make me really happy. She doesn't love those, okay? She shows up every once in a while, but sometimes she opts out, and that's okay because we know she doesn't love the big group functions. But she does make a really big point when she comes to the group functions to connect with the people that she doesn't really see like one on one.
Hmm.
And just to maintain like the simplest of connections with those people, because that helps her feel more connected to the group when she does come.
Right.
But, like, she doesn't really enjoy it. I really enjoy it. If you looked at us from the outside, you may have no clue that that's the case.
Yeah.
So again, like, don't judge because you don't know.
I joke with my friends because it is. I didn't know anyone else that had the 30 plus like friend group. I didn't think that was normal, but um like, I joke that we kinda have different like, it's like a family of different roles, like,
Mhm.
I'm the mom because I love cooking, I love bring people together, and some people are more of, like some people are, like, once in a while, like,
They're
distant
like
relatives that
yeah, they're like the
sometimes
great
show
uncle
up.
that appears every
Yeah,
once in a while for
this
a special thing, yeah.
yeah, and it's really funny, like, how you think of it because, like, even with that language, it helps to put in perspective when you have, like, a community like that people add different flavors to the group, and people, like, add different energies to the group. There might be someone that might be a lot more, like, introverted that prefers a less stimulating environment, but they add more depth to the group. And I think it's very fascinating. And it's also something that we need to if we're like building community or if we're like building friendships, then we need to understand that people have different energies. That one circle of the family might like connect better. And it doesn't mean that the whole community is like bad or anything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just it's different levels of connection all mixed together, but the thing that keeps it going is that people are trying to connect, in my opinion, with, like, one-on-one. And that doesn't
Hmm.
mean like one-on-one hangouts. It could mean like taking time in the group function to go to some of your simpler connections and just be like, "Hey, how have you been? I haven't talked to you in a while. Are you okay? What's new?
Mhm.
Other people are going to be like friends you're texting every day.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It doesn't need to be the exact same level of connection amongst everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think I guess my message to people is don't limit yourself because you feel no, well, number one, confront like the scarcity mindset of friendship that it has that your connections are not enough. But also don't limit yourself to someone else's definition of
Mhm.
friendship or like the culture's definition. Cause sometimes like the culture might perpetuate something that doesn't work for you. And for me, like I joke that like my guy friends are like my husbands, not really,
Mhm.
but that I joke with them that I have like many husbands, but as joking more about like our closeness and how that works for me is that I have different people, different guy friends that give something or feel a certain need that another guy friend can't. Like for example, my roommate, he is very busy. Like this month has been very busy because he's in a musical and hasn't been able to spend as much time. But however, I have another friend that we've been frequently hanging out more. Doesn't mean I'm cheating
No.
on someone else. What it means is that people, depending on the time and the season and depending on life factors, some people are able to fill that space more than someone else. It doesn't mean that someone else is less important. It's just how things are right now.
Well, and I would hope and think that your roommate would actually feel relieved in a sense, right? Because
Yeah.
imagine if you were really upset and you were like, "Ugh, you have no time for me this month." And he is over here trying to juggle this insane calendar and go after his own goals versus what you're doing now, which is being like, hey, you got a big month. Like, I'm excited to support you, but also don't worry about me, right? Like, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good. I got
Yeah.
other people I can call, hang out with. Like, if I need something, I would go to someone else. You go do you and, like, focus. I'm so
Yeah.
excited for you in this musical.
Yeah, I joke with him, like, I don't see you, like I joke with him, like, "You come home at 10 PM, I don't see you all day." So it's more of like a joke, but it
Yeah.
also, like, just says, like, "Hey, like, this is just how things are looking right now." Like, there's nothing wrong with how things are
Well,
looking.
honestly, it
It's
probably
just
makes you appreciate, like, you like your downloads at the end of the day or, right? Like,
mhm.
whatever the platonic intimacy is there, like, sharing the crap thing that happened, laughing
Yeah,
about that joke. Like, you enjoy that. Right now, there's not really time for that because it doesn't sound like he has much time to even sleep, but, like,
yeah,
you are looking forward to it when it comes back because you do enjoy
yeah.
it. Yeah.
And, like, he also, like, he tells, like, people, like, "Hey, I will be back in March," or whatever, and that's just, like, how, like, I think, like, that's how, like, life is, like, life kinda goes in rhythms, and people might be more frequent now, they might not be more frequent in a few months or years, it doesn't mean anything about the connection. I think that's where a lot of, like, our anxiety comes from is when we place the friends forever, the friends, like, all the time, always being here, I think that's so it's a lot of anxiety attached to that.
Yeah, or trying to make sure they look a certain way. Yeah, I think if people could let go just a little bit and, like, ride the waves of their friendships and not hold so tightly to them
So
looking
oh
like
my
an
gosh.
exact way, their friendships would be so much, like, honestly stronger, better. Your brain and your anxieties wouldn't get in the way and make up stories that would then have you
Mhm.
acting differently. Like, if you could just roll with it a little bit more, I think a lot of people would enjoy their friendships more.
Yeah, because then you're able to let the friendship breathe for what it is, and yeah, just less anxiety attached to
Yep.
that.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, I think we have, like, a solid hour. I loved our conversation.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I have loved
Yeah,
our
this was
conversation,
awesome.
and I hope people really, I don't know, just reflect. I think start listening to, like, what phrases are being thrown around and
Mhm.
do you actually agree with those? Because when you hear them enough times, I think it can just be easy to accept them as fact, but
Yeah.
a lot of them are not. A lot of them
I
are
think
just
it's
things we say.
Yeah, I think that's when the, like, intentionality aspect comes with it is, if for the listeners, if you are wrestling with, that scarcity mindset, is it really coming from because your friendships aren't aligning with your values, or is it not aligning with the ideal of the culture?
Yeah. And I think that will make a really big shift for people. Just a little bit of reflection. Doesn't even need to be something big, just a little bit here and there. Well, thank you so much for this convo, Mike. I really
Yeah,
appreciate
thank
it.
you for coming back on. We'll let you know when, the other, episode is uploaded because I still have to edit that, and, yeah.
Well, I'm excited. I'm excited for people to hear it.